to Eric's podcast. Dive into conversations about life, family, and business with your host, Eric. Whether you're looking for practical advice, personal stories, or just a little inspiration, Eric's got you covered. Tune in every week to join the journey and get ready to elevate your game. Now, here's your host, Eric.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Eric podcast. I'm your host, Eric. And today, joining me is Devan Gonzalez, a proud husband and dad. He has been in the fitness industry for 15 years. He's founder of Stride 11 Fitness, a president and CEO of Stride 11 International, host of the Great Mindset Cafe podcast, and he's a best-selling author of Money, Muscle, Mindset. His number one goal is to have a positive impact on as many people as he possibly can. So thank you so much for joining me, Devan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, sounds like you've been busy.
Just a little bit.
So we like to start the episode off with some kind of something entertaining, funny, a little short story that either happened to you recently or has happened to you that you want to share. Have anything entertaining for us today?
I will say, not on a business standpoint, but on a personal standpoint, I do have a daughter, and she had, just turned 3. When we first had her and everything, me and my wife were like, oh man, like imagine, there's going to come that day when she just starts asking why. And we have just entered that phase of life. So that is, all of a sudden we were driving and she just hits us with a, but why? And then it was, we give her an answer and then, but why? And then
yeah, exactly.
I was like, oh no, we are.
Yeah, so I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and we went through that last year, and he's 3.5 now. But same thing. So what I started doing is he would ask me a question and I would go, why? And then he would just answer it just like I would. And then I would say, but what? And I would do the exact same thing. And it's hilarious because he instantly got what I was doing to him. Because I'm like, there's no way you're going to just keep asking why at the end. And it has to be a game or something. And then it turned out to be a game. And we had just been playing this game, and I didn't even know this whole time.
I tried to do it to my daughter yesterday, but I mean, she's also sick, and that's why my voice might sound like, I have a cold or something. I think she's giving it to me, but I gave her the answers, and then she kept going with the why. So then I was like, I don't know, you tell me why. And then we just kept going back, and then she was like, Dad, stop, and I was like,
the same thing happened. Okay, that's cool. So you're into fitness.
Yep. I mean,
tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, I've been into fitness pretty much all my life. I mean, it started back, for the listeners that, know what a VHS tape is. My dad had VHS tapes of bodybuilding, people. And at the age of like 12, 13, I started watching those VHS tapes and writing notes in, a journal, and then going to the gym, because that's when you're pretty much allowed to get a gym membership at most like corporate gyms is 12, 13. So I was getting dropped off, and I would go there with my note page and, try to do some of the workouts and stuff. And that's when I really started getting that love for it. I was the annoying kid in the gym going up to all the, big buff dudes and be like, hey, what does that work? But genuinely like curious, and they would tell me, and majority of them were super cool. And I would, write it down. I'm like, okay, thank you. And then they would leave, and I would try a couple of sets and, figure it out. And so that's where I think my love for fitness really came. Just the, one, pushing yourself, but also 2, the community and the culture that's in a gym. And I mean, that fast forwarded has kind of shaped my life from being a martial arts instructor to becoming a personal trainer to running a personal training business, launching a prep school for, middle school kids, that were basketball athletes, to launching my own gym and now a national franchise.
Wow. That's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. How did you meet your wife, and how's that wrapped into all of this story?
So, not to give trainers a bad rep, because I've never dated a client, I've never gone out with a client or anything like that. But it just so happens that my wife was a client, And then we stopped training for probably 6 months or so. But at the time I was in college and I was part of a fraternity, and we had this, every summer we rent out a hotel in Palm Springs, and her and a couple of her friends wanted to basically reserve a room and everything because I was running it that year. So it just so happened that they reserved a room, and, we kicked it off outside the gym, and, we weren't training at that time. But when anyone asks, I immediately just go, "Oh yeah, I was her trainer," and she wanted to save money, but no, that's how it kind of happened.
It just all just worked so fluidly. Sounds like.
I told her, I was like, "Look, it was the best investment you made in yourself." I was like, "You got a personal trainer, and now you have a personal trainer for life."
Exactly. So how did you get into launching your own fitness company?
So I mean, I always wanted to open a gym, and I know every personal trainer says that they want to open a gym because they feel like that's the next gradual step. And in reality, I mean, there's trainers that make, 7 figures just training. So it's not necessarily that you have to open a gym, but I also knew that being a trainer, and my personal business with personal training was 6 figures, and I was making a great income. But I realized the business was me, and there was no sick days, there was no off time, and you can't hire another trainer to train your clients because, that's just not how the industry works. They just take your clients. And so I wanted to be able to serve more people because my schedule was overfilled. I was, I had 16-hour days, back-to-back clients, and I had clients that were sold on a waiting list essentially. So if someone canceled, I would text the waiting list, and whoever wanted to fill it could fill it. I was like, you know what? Like, there has to be something, else. And hearing my clients come back from these boot camps and stuff in between our sessions, I was like, there's a lot of like the same problems at different companies. I was like, well, I don't understand why someone hasn't just solved those core issues. Slowly, I started putting the pieces to the puzzle together, testing stuff out, trying stuff. And that's what led to Strive 11, the initial phase of Strive 11 being created. It was so that we could create a boot camp model that was no class times, open up to a broader demographic than the traditional model. So it's almost like a blend of a big box gym where you come in during operating hours, but you get the energy of a boot camp, feeling of a boot camp, and then you get that customization for each exercise like a personal trainer.
Well, okay. So basically, you can come in, you can show up at any time and like have a professional trainer train you forever,
Yes.
however long you want to be there.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a workout of the day essentially, and each day there's different muscle splits. But when you show up, one of the trainers, there's always 2 trainers on the floor. One of the trainers will basically start you in the warm up. Take your time when you're ready. The Strive 11, the 11 comes from the 11 stations we have for the day, and then all the stations are on a timer, a singular timer for the room. So everyone's rotating together so that you're not waiting on anyone and no one's waiting on you. But the trainers are there to make sure that you're doing the form correctly, as well as adjusting the exercise easier or harder depending on your fitness level.
How do you manage your time? Because with, you have a 3-year-old, how do you manage your time and shifting, going back and forth? To explain, go into a little bit of during that time of when you've been trying to build it and launch it and move everything together. How did that impact the parenting style and time element?
I would say, I mean, we found out my wife was pregnant the day or like the same week I signed my lease for the gym, right? So, perfect timing.
Wow. Yeah.
And so when she was born, we had only been open for like 6 months. And so there was a lot of, going through the mud and trying to figure it out of, being burnt out and, feeling exhausted and stuff. What really allowed me to kind of prioritize things was open communication with my wife, as well as planning the day ahead, right? So like not just trying to...
Yeah, give me an idea of what that go into the weeds a little bit. Give me an idea of what that looks like in terms of, what does the conversation look like? And then how does the structure, what does that look like? And how would you plan a day ahead?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, the conversation for me with my wife started off with, since I was at the gym all day long and she was with the baby, I would get home at night and be like, okay, naturally it's my turn, right? That after like day 3 and my vision was blurred and I was like, I can't even see straight. And I was like, I don't know how long I could do this. And I told her, I was like, I can't even, like, I can't function right now. Like, you know, and then she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I'm trying to do like the night shift, but I was like, I'm running on like 3 hours of sleep for the last 3 days. Like, I can't, this is not a long strategy. But then she was like, I honestly, you should have just told me. And I was like, I wanted to be the other half. And she was like, this isn't a half and half game. And I was like, man, this is crazy. This is like the same conversation I had with my business partner. And I was like, you're right. I was like, I was just, you know, I just thought that would be my shift kind of thing. She's like, no, like, we're a team. Some days, some weeks, it's you're doing 60%, I'm doing 40, some it's 90-10, vice versa. She's like, at the end of the day, we just have to make it up together. And so planning it out the day ahead, really, because I mean, majority of, especially when you're launching a business or, you know, running a business, you have to wear a lot of hats, meaning that you have to do a lot of things that you later can delegate to other people as you can grow a team. But in the beginning phases, like, you are all those other people, right? So knowing a clear structure for the day ahead, like have goals, right? What is my goal for tomorrow? And just focus on those tasks. Don't worry about all the things that are possible to get done tomorrow. Just have a set of anywhere from 3 to 10, depending on, again, on how difficult or, you know, time constraint the task might take. If you're redeveloping a website, that might take all day. You might just have one task, right? So it's like, plan the day ahead so that, you know, at 5 or at 4 or whatever time you set, like, okay, I'm clocking out here. I'm going to go home and I'm going to spend 2 hours with my family, whatever the case may be. So like for me, I'll, you know, come to the gym, and I mean, now with the franchise side, it's a little different, but let's say I go to the gym at that time, I'll go to the gym at 5, and then, you know, I'll work until 5 or I'll work until 7, but then I'll go home because I know that's when my wife is already home, my daughter's home, and it's like, I'll spend 2 hours, 3 hours with them. Once you know, my daughter goes to sleep, maybe spend an extra 30 minutes to an hour with my wife, depending on if she's super tired and she wants to go to bed. And then when she goes to bed, I know I can still work from home and do the things I needed to do on the back end there. So then I'll set like maybe an hour, 2 hours, you know, if I still have unfinished things to do during that time. But the real important thing is making sure that when I'm with my family, I'm not working, right? So like, if I'm at work, if I'm at work and I'm building the business, like, I'm focused on the business. If I'm at home, I'm focused on home, right? And really making sure that you're separating the two, because otherwise everything starts to blend in together. And then even though you're home with them, you're not actually there.
Yeah. And I know for me, when I had an office in downtown, going there and having a 10-hour day, and then cutting it off at whatever it was, 6 or 8 or whatever it was, and then coming straight home. But one of the things what I realized about me is that I needed like a 30-minute kind of break period where I'm not at work, but I'm not home yet. And there was this, it went under though, unfortunately, but there was this bar that's a minute down the road. And I would go over there, I would get one beer and some tater tots and just like breathe and try not to, and like, I'm coming down, I'm not thinking about work, the day's done, and then I'm going to start my day tomorrow. And that worked wonders, actually, because what was happening before was I would just come straight home and I would realize, wow, because I would get bombarded with all the other family stuff that I need to do, and they want my time and I want to give it to them, but I'm also like burnt out in a way, like I need some me time. And once I figured out that one beer with the side of tater tots, that was such a good transition. But now I'm working from home again, and it's a whole nother. It's decent because I have managed to train my kids that when I say I am working, I am not, doesn't mean that I'm not available to you, but I am not like, I'm always working in a different room. I'm like, the door's closed, I'm working, but if you really need something, you can knock on the door and come and get me if something's happened or you need to talk or whatever it is. And that's been actually a great transition. The hardest thing though is trying to concentrate.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the hardest thing for me.
I mean, I think that, because I mean, I'll work from home some days and I'll work from right now I'm in the gym, in the back office, but now that I'm doing the franchise side, I can work wherever I want and my gym runs itself. You know, we have management, we have everything in place. But I will agree with you. The hard part is being at home. And even though it's an at home like office, it can be hard to separate the two, not for you maybe, but for your family. Right. And having the family understand like even though I'm here, like I am accessible to you, but also realize that I need to do these things to make sure that we could still be here, you know?
Exactly right.
And that's the hard part is that was actually a conversation I had with my wife was, I mean, she has a career and, you know, more power to her and everything like that. Like, you know, whatever she wants, like I want her to be able to do it. She wants to work, go for it. She doesn't want to work. Let's find a way for it to not be that way. So I'm not one of those people that you have to be from home or you have to work or anything like that. But I had to have a conversation with her because launching a franchise is a full another set of responsibilities. Not only do I have my team and my staff that, you know, rely on me to keep things going and afloat and everything like that, but now you have people investing in you and your concept and so forth. And some people, it's their life savings, right? So it's like, I told her, I was like, I understand that like you don't understand the business part of it. I was like, but for example, imagine if the founder of McDonald's was trying to build McDonald's to what it is now, and he was having to do all these little things all throughout the day and giving, you know, only being able to give work an hour. I was like, do you think McDonald's would be where it is today? And then having that, like making it her understand it from a point of view that she could understand it and relate to it, and not being like, it's not like I don't want to do things and be a part of things, but sometimes I just may not be able to go to an event, right? Like sometimes I have to go to, you know, a franchise location and whatever, you know, like when our Tampa location opens, like I have to be out there for a week. And so it's like, if something else is coming up during that same week, unfortunately, I have to be at the business thing. However important the thing that we have in our personal life is, like, if someone else gets mad at me, I'm okay with that. But as long as you're on the same page with me, that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. And I think starting out young too and trying to explain it to your kids as young, you know, I think that's the one thing that I don't want them to take away from it. Like, because the way my parents were entrepreneurs and they built a business, and I remember being a teenager feeling like dad is on the phone all the time. He's either on the phone all the time when he's at home or when we're supposed to spend time together, or he's at work. And I remember I have 4 other siblings and we all felt the same way and we just had each other, or that's what it felt like. Obviously in hindsight, it's like, okay, he was building a business and he was going to sell it, which ultimately happened. But I don't want that. If there had been more communication on either my mom's side or my dad, or bringing me in to being like, hey, Eric, why don't you I'll put it on speakerphone, watch, this is what I'm doing. I feel like doing stuff like that. And I have to, you know, I'm not great, but I'm trying to be better at including my 3-year-old, because he's 3.5, but he's just now at the place where it's like I can actually, it might just be holding him, and he might not understand what I'm doing, and then that's all he needs. There was I had a guest on in the last episode, and there was this thing that we talked about, and it was 10 minutes to your kid is like 2 hours in terms of the way they perceive time. And that hit me so hard, because being super busy, and it's like all I had to do is spend like 10 times hanging out and playing with them and having a good time, and that's the equivalent to 2 hours. That's kind of crazy, because 10 minutes goes by for us like hardly anything. But yeah, I agree though. Definitely communication, and definitely like trying to go where you need to go and communicate. I think that's really important.
I think it's super important because I mean, I talk to other entrepreneurs, like I'm part of networks and stuff as well. And the big thing is, like, as entrepreneurs, I mean, I don't have any entrepreneur backgrounds in my family, My dad was a police officer. My mom was a pharmacy technician. And so I got, my dad's work ethic and everything like that, because he would always be at work. He was rarely home. And then sometimes when he was at home, he was on call. So I get that aspect of it. But for me, it's like, because we never get an off switch, we don't get to clock in, clock out as entrepreneurs. And so the thing is, not just our kids, but our significant other is sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, and this was something I learned, after a couple of years in business, was like, you have to let your family in a little bit so that they feel like they're a piece of it, right? Otherwise, it feels like you have two lives. You have your work life and your business, which is your own baby. Good point. And then you have them, right? So it's like, you don't want them to feel like you have your work family and then them. It should feel like they should feel like they're almost there building the business with you, right? So it's like, you don't need to tell your significant other, your kid, every single fire that you're trying to put out or every struggle or obstacle that you're going through. But if you give them one that isn't, a crazy one, because you don't want to worry them either, but you give them one and be like, hey, what do you think? Well, I'm thinking I'm either going to go this way or do this. Like, what would you do? Right? And then let them, and whether you use the ideas or not is besides the point. It's just the fact that they get to feel like you're leaning your head on them, right? They want to feel like a shoulder for you. And so it's like, even with my wife, like giving her some, problems, and I might already have the answer, but just letting her in so she feels like, okay, like he's going through some stuff right now. Like I felt like I could give him some information or give him some help. Like I'll see her face light up when she tries to give me feedback, right? And then being communicative in the sense of like, right now, like I told her, it was actually this month, I was like, right now we're in growth phase, right? Like I was like, it's going to be busy this month, right? Next month may not be like that, but at the end of the day, like, December, it was a little more relaxed. So like we stay on the same page of like, why is it busy time right now? What is the goal? How close am I to getting to goal and so forth, so that she knows that like, okay, right now it's work time, right? Right now it's this. Right. And so then my daughter, being only 3, doesn't understand that. But it's like when I am home with her, like you said, the 10-minute thing, like I'll take her to the pet store to get, food for our dog. And we'll spend 5 minutes looking at the fish and looking at the lizards. And she comes home and tells my wife, it's almost like she had a full day at the zoo. This is what it sounds like. Right. And so like, It's like those little things. And it's like being just present for those short amount of times. Today, it might only be 10 minutes. Tomorrow it might be, 10 hours. But at the end of the day, when you're with them, you're with them.
Yeah, 100%. And that, as entrepreneurs, there's definitely a mindset that you kind of have to create and find for yourself. Mm-hmm. What's your mindset and why is it to you important?
So, I mean, I feel like for the entrepreneurial mindset, there's different phases and different levels to it. In the beginning, I hate using the word grind, like when people say you just need to, put in the grind and, because grinding insinuates that you're shaving things off and wearing something down. I like to say that you're in like the mold phase, right? You're molding the thing you want to do. You're trying to figure things out, putting pieces, trying to figure out how everything works together. And at that phase, you're wearing all the hats, you're most likely a solopreneur. And so you have to realize it's almost like being a professional athlete that doesn't have a team. Right? Everything relies on you. Every failure is your fault. Now, once you get a team, every failure is still your fault, right? Because this is where entrepreneurs start to mistake this mindset. Your team is a representation of your ability to lead them, right? And if they're not succeeding, that doesn't mean necessarily, and there is exceptions to this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not doing their jobs to the best of their ability. It may mean that you haven't given them the skills or the resources that they need to do their jobs the way that you want them done or to the level that you want them done. And this was one of those things when I went to launch the franchise aspect of it, and the team and my business partner were running the gym. Mind you, my business partner didn't have any entrepreneurial experience like I did running even my own personal training company, right? And so a lot of the things that I was doing that were common sense to me weren't common sense to him or anyone else, because that's when I realized that common sense is only common to the person that knows it, right? And so for that part, it was like, okay, now I had to take a step back and be like, what was I doing that they're not doing And did I teach this to them and they're just not doing it? Or did I not teach this and I need to create a system or a training curriculum around it and so forth? But at the end of the day, if they're succeeding, it's because of them. If they're failing, it's because of you, right? You don't get to, like, you never want to be the owner that takes all the credit. Like, you give that credit to them, even though it's because of you. But when they're not doing well, you have to take responsibility and be like, what do I need to do to help you achieve the things that you need to achieve, right? So those levels to it. But at the end of the day, just like a parent, you learn what you don't know, because you don't know what you don't know. And you learn as you go, right? And you continue to grow, you continue to get better. And just like being a parent, you just don't give up. You just keep trying. You keep figuring out new ways. You find a solution to the problem. Because for every problem, there is a solution. You just have to be willing to go find it.
How do you push through obstacles? Like when you find when you are being knocked down, how do you mentally, maybe this is a 10th try or 11th try or 20th try, and you still can't figure it out. How do you get through that or past that? Or is it just like coming to an understanding that maybe it's not the right time right now?
I mean, in some cases, it may not be the right time, right? Sometimes it is opportunity that needs to be aligned, but rarely is that the case, right? Because opportunity is found from your willingness to find it, right? And so this is the best analogy, and I love the analogies between fitness and business, and even more so that I'm in the fitness business. But, think of it this way, right? You want to lose 10 pounds and you've never been in the gym. You go to the gym for the first day, you give it everything you got, you wake up the next day, you look in the mirror, no change. And you go again the next day and do it again. You wake up again, lift up your shirt, no change. But you continuously do it. And over time, you start to become the person that you are aiming to be. Sometimes you just have to trust the process, and it takes a few attempts. But at the same time, let's say it's like, with business things, sometimes it doesn't work the way you're trying it. So it's like running into a wall in pitch black. You can go straight for it again, or you can take one step to the right and go for it again. You might hit that wall, but if you take another step to the right and try again, it might be the end of the wall and you might make it through, right? So it's like sometimes you just need to learn the skills of the resources that you don't know yet, right? The things that are common sense to someone else that aren't common sense to you. But yet there's so many things out there like YouTube. I mean, I am a huge advocate of YouTube University. And then Google. I mean, if you don't know something, and now with AI, it's like you don't know something, type it in. It's like it's not acceptable to not know how to do something forever, right?
You have like mental strategies that you could share that have worked for you?
I mean, sometimes, like I will say, obstacles seem bigger or more frustrating, or you get more stressed because of everything compounding. And sometimes you have to take a step back and look at how far you've came, right? For example, when we opened the gym, everything was growing. I went from a personal trainer to opening a gym. The gym's growing, and all of a sudden we were, it's like, man, you kind of hit a point of like what you feel is stagnation, or numbers aren't, going up as much as they should. And then you're like, you need to take a step back and like, dang, look at what we've done in 6 months. Look at where we came in a year, 5 years. And then you realize that just because you're moving at 100 miles an hour right now doesn't mean it's always going to be 100 miles an hour, right? And so sometimes you have to set those milestones for yourself and realize that each milestone, as you accomplish it, give yourself praise. Give yourself a pat on the back. You don't need to do a crazy, celebration for winning it, but acknowledge it, because that's what's going to keep you going. Dedication is the willingness to do the things that you need to do, or that you need to do, even though you may not feel like doing them, right? And that's where success is really built, is the fact of whether you feel like it, whether you don't, because it's tough. You hit this obstacle a few times, you know that you need to keep doing it, and this is the path that is going to lead you there, whether it's this exact path or a detour on the same path.
So I know you wrote a book. We kind of hinted at it at the beginning of the show, Money, Muscle, Mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about what brought you to a place to write that book, and go into a little bit about what it's about, what the goal, what the purpose, what the mission is that you want the reader to take away from it?
Definitely. I mean, Money Muscle Mindset. I mean, I always wanted to write a book because I always thought it was cool, to have your name on something and
Yeah.
to leave those foundational like pieces of you and of your knowledge. But at the same time, like, I never knew what to write on and so forth. And then after opening a gym and growing it and franchising it, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, well, I want to write a book that I wish I would have had as a personal trainer that would allowed me to learn what is now common sense or common knowledge, but it wasn't then. Right. And so the book, the first chapter and the last chapter are both about mindset and about entrepreneurial mindset. And the reason why it's the first and the last chapter, it's my belief that everything begins and ends with your mindset, with your mind, right? What I mean by that is if you believe you can achieve something, you can. Maybe, but if you keep believing that you can, you keep trying, you will. The moment that you stop believing that you can achieve it is the moment that becomes impossible.
I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. You're so right. I've never thought about the putting, because, we don't just start something to fail.
Mm-hmm.
We start in the mindset of it to be successful.
Yeah, you start in the belief.
Exactly. And I think what a lot of people end up doing is they get knocked down so many times and that belief dissipates.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was trying to start project, it was like my second one. And I'm like, I know this thing can be successful. I know it can be successful. 2 years go into it. And I'm like, I know it can be successful. I need these resources and I need this. And I ended up pausing it. That's what I told myself. I'm like, I know I'm not giving up, but I can either spend the next 5 years making this work, or I can pause it and start this in a year and make this work, because I can see that this is more successful. And that really taught me a lot, because I, up to that point, would beat myself up for giving up, and once that mindset change shifted of, no, this will work. I can come back to this at any time. I know it will work, but I'm choosing to go and build this instead.
Yeah. I mean, that's not giving up, in my opinion. That's pivoting, right?
Pivoting,
and
sure. Yeah.
Well,
it was completely different. It was like, they were like two completely different businesses, basically.
No, I get it. I mean,
pivoting in your mind. But yeah, that's true.
But I mean, for example, like same thing. I mean, I started off as a personal trainer. It didn't naturally continue down that path. I was also becoming an EMT, and I was going to go the firefighting route, because that's what, my parents and people wanted me to get a normal job and stuff. And I was doing everything to do it. And then I was like, you know what? I really like this personal training thing. Like, I would rather go this way. And so I had to pivot all my attention to what I was putting attention to basically making this a reality. Now, throughout that reality, there's been other things that could be successful businesses. And believe me, the gym wasn't the first business that I've tried. There's a graveyard of businesses that I've tried before this. And then there's some that I have tried, started building. And then, like yourself, I'm like, let me put this on the back burner right now. Like, this one, I want to focus on this. Like, I'm not, saying that I won't do this or make it something later, but I see my purpose is more aligned with this right now. And it's crazy because some of those other ones came back to fruition in my new business. For example, during COVID, we had me and a friend started a meal plan service, not meal prep, but we made zero food. And it was just writing meal plans for people, like customized meal plans for people. And we probably had, like 20 clients, nothing big, but it was also that we only ran it for probably 2 months and did zero paid ads or anything like that. So 20 clients paying, a gym membership essentially for, paying $100 to $150 for these online meal plans that were personalized to them. And then it was like, okay, we had to tell people like, we're doing some other stuff. My business partner was kind of over it and I had too much on my plate. So I was like, let me put pause on this. And now with my gym, we actually reinstalled that as another that faucet of the gym, right? So sometimes the opportunity is a good opportunity, but sometimes you have to pivot to do what you meant to do and grow that. And then sometimes all of a sudden, like, opportunity just seems right. And you're like, wow, now what I was doing before, it can work even better now because I have all this extra knowledge and extra resources that this is going to actually be 10x,
Yeah.
you know?
You mentioned that you had there's a graveyard. Can you go into a little bit of like I don't know if you're comfortable, pick a couple of your projects that failed and why? Like how did they fail?
So I'll start with my first two, which is really one, this was back in like high school, and I started a t-shirt company, and because I saw there was another local one that was blowing up, and I was like, dude, that's so cool seeing, all these kids wearing it and stuff. So then I was like, I wanted to do it. So me and a friend started it, and it was cool seeing our logo and our shirts around town and having people be like, dude, I saw someone at the market wearing your shirt, snapping a picture and sending it to us. And I was like, I don't even know that dude.
A
it's
good
like,
feeling.
it's cool. So, but at the same time, then that kind of fell off, and it wasn't really aligned with anything that we were doing. Like, it was called Nitrous Apparel, right? And we didn't even drive at the time, when we launched it. It was just, that was when Fast and the Furious came out and that whole thing. But then I basically transitioned that into like short fused apparel, and that was because I did MMA, and I was like, this is more like fighting and stuff. But then for me personally, I just realized I was like, the apparel industry is such a trend thing, where it's like, I don't know if you ever heard of the hundreds, right? I like to say this analogy because I remember in high school kids getting tattoos of the hundreds, like logo and everything like that. And it's like, now you don't see it anywhere, right? And so it's like, I was like, okay, you know what? This is cool. I'll wear my own stuff. And like, even after that, like I would make my own shirts and just wear designs that I liked and stuff. But I left that alone. The next one was during personal training. I went to a networking event, and, it was a TEDx event and with Grant Cardone and some other big names. And I got sold, and honestly, it's still a great company, but I got sold on ClickFunnels, and I was like, this is so cool. I'm going to create a business. I was thinking about all these different business opportunities that I could create from this. Meanwhile, I had my personal training company. And so I was like, what if I do like a personal training course thing online? I spent probably like 6 months building this whole thing out. And then I was like, I don't even really want to do this. I like the face-to-face. Like, this is not me. So even though it was all built out, didn't even, put it to market, let it fail, wasted a couple $1,000s doing that whole thing. And there was a few of those things along the path. My wife wanted to do a photo booth business. And I told her, I was like, look, I got my personal training business. I'll buy this machine. I will buy this machine for you, but you have to run it. I will help you on the back end. That went out the window the moment we got the machine. She was like, so can you help me with, like, you're better at computers. Can you help me with like the layouts of the printouts? Yeah, no problem. Hey, the machine's kind of heavy. Do you think you could help me take it there? Yeah, no problem. Well, now I have to unload it. And it's like, now where am I going to go? So it's like, now I'm helping her the whole, and I was like, that was a full on bait and switch. I was like, I see how that went, but at the same time, like, she had her own thing, and that was something that seemed cool to her at the time. Now she has her own, business with doing eyelash curls and extensions. And again, that was all hers. She loves doing it. So it was just a misalignment for her, right? And we sold the machine and everything like that. So again, that's just another one of the examples. So people see me now and they're like, oh, you're a successful entrepreneur. You opened a gym. It's like, yeah, but you don't see the plethora of stuff that I tried and failed beforehand. And it was like, knowing that this may not just be the thing that worked doesn't mean that you can't find something that worked. Or before the gym, my business partner wasn't the first person I talked to about opening the gym, right? He was probably number 13 or 14. And
go into that. How did you like find a partner, or did you already know him, like from a friend perspective?
So I knew him as a client perspective.
Okay.
How we got introduced, he wasn't even a traditional client. I was just helping him as a favor to one of the people that worked at the gym, because he wanted to do a bodybuilding competition, and he didn't have a coach, and a lot of people wouldn't coach him in the gym that were in the space of bodybuilding already. And so I told him, I was like, look, no worries, like, I'll be able to train you in between my clients. You don't need to pay me. I was like, I'll do this, just as a favor, and I want to see you succeed, because he's a really good guy. And I was like, but at the moment you start seeing results, if other people start coming in to coach you, if you take their advice, is the moment that I cut you off. Right. And I was like, no one else wants to help you now. I'm willing to do it, but I do not want to be one of 10 cooks in the kitchen. Right. And then he was like, okay, deal. So I helped him, and like his work ethic was, you know, I would tell him this is what needs to be done for today. And he had a career. He worked at Kaiser Permanente Hospital. And so after his shift, he would get in and he'd be at the gym at 9 p.m. and he would start working out. You could tell he was exhausted, but if he would look at his phone, see what needed to be done, and he did it to a T. Didn't leave early, didn't, you know, and it was like, I loved it. I was like, that's dope. So in 12 weeks, he went from like 20% body fat to 5% body fat, you know, and like walked on stage, felt great, all natural, you know, didn't do any, you know, performance enhancing stuff. And so that was like, I was addicting. His work ethic was awesome. And that led him to want to go into personal training on the side of his business. Right. So basically before I dive into that one, like before him, it was like, I was talking with other people that were other trainers that had what they said were investors, or meeting a client that said they would invest, and, you know, finding out that it was fake money in, you know, they weren't really, they're big talk kind of deal.
Yeah. Love those people.
But that would be like, that conversation would take 6 months of like, you know, there was one person I was going to locations with, right? Like me and her were going to locations, and she was like, you know, acting like we were going to get a space. And it was like, at one point I was like, is this ever going to happen? And then I started putting pieces to the puzzle and taking a step back, because I was so excited and emotionally invested in it that my analytical side had been put on pause. And then things started clicking, and I was like, I see what this is. Like, you know, and I was like, never mind. So I would cancel it, or I would have an alignment with someone. I wrote a full business plan for this partnership that was going to be 4 of us. And then 2 other guys, it was basically me and a friend, and then 2 other friends were going to do it. And then me and my friend were waiting. And then all of a sudden, these other 2 dudes literally just ran with my business plan. And I was like, all right, no worries. Like that was basic level anyway. It was literally just a regular open box gym. And then that gym literally went and failed in less than a year. And it was like, you guys don't realize not everything was on the paper, right? Like that's just the overview. But, you know, all those things. And it's like, each time it was so demotivating, because it's like you put 6 months, a year into this relationship thinking it's going to go work out, and then it doesn't. And then you do it again and again. So, I mean, there was so many of these conversations that at any point I could have got deterred and be like, you know what, I'll just keep personal training. I'll go into the celebrity space or whatever, because I had those opportunities. I just didn't really want to take it. I liked what I was doing, and I wanted to open my own thing. And launching the prep school, like I could have kept going with that. And after the year of helping them get established, I was like, you know what, if I keep going down this path with them, yes, I can make a career of it and make, you know, be successful with them. I was like, but this is not what I want to do. Like, I will always regret not opening my own gym. Right. So I basically I had to bow out and be like, look, I don't need anything of it. Like, you know, I'm not asking for my percentage. Like, I want you guys to succeed. Like, I'm glad I got to have a piece of helping you guys start. Like, I just need to go do my thing. So me and them are still really good friends and stuff. And so my business partner, during that time I was training him, he did his show. He's, you know, looking to start personal training, and he's working at a boot camp now. And then I caught wind of it, and I was like, I hear what, you know, so-and-so told me what you were trying to do. I was like, look, I've done that already. Right. I was like, you've already experienced it. I was like, when you have a free time, I want to pitch you something. And because like he wasn't the financial investor or anything like that. Like, I just wanted a partner to go through it with. Right.
Yeah.
And so
someone who could
exactly. And go through the fire. And it's a lot more fun to do things with friends, in my opinion. Not every business partner works out, but if I was about to go do it by myself, and the only reason I brought him on was because I heard he was going down that same path. Otherwise, I was going to do this by myself. And so I pitched him the idea, and I was like, look, I'll collab, you know, your brand, which was Never Give Up. That'll be our tagline. Right. And we'll run it with Strive 11. And he said, dude, let's do it. Like, what do we need to do?
Let's do it.
I was like, you know, so then COVID hit, and then we did our Strive 11 program, the first like 1.0 version, in the park for an entire year. Like, we were just getting brand recognition, you know, people that were paying to come, we were just reinvesting that and getting a banner and getting a backdrop and just random stuff. And then in testing stuff out, because at the park you had endless space, and if things were getting clogged up, it's like, okay, well, the warm up used to be 5 or 10 exercises. This is not working out because we have so many people sitting here. I was like, in the gym, this isn't going to work. How are we going to adjust this? So we were testing stuff out before we actually had any monthly expenses. And some days there was a bunch of people. Some days it would just be me and him sitting in the back of my trunk, like in the SUV, because it was so windy, and we were just sitting there just in case someone came, right? And those are the things that people don't see, you know, and it's like, we opened our doors and it was like, man, this was like 5 years of being an overnight success in terms of just opening the gym, right? From all those conversations and failed attempts. And it's like, that one person looking back, if I would have ended up partnering with that one individual or that group of individuals, I know I wouldn't have been as successful as we are now. And also, I don't think I would be the person that I would wanted to be.
I think you said, yeah, exactly. And I think that's another thing people don't really realize when they even get started is how long it could actually take for something to come into what the fullness of your vision that you have for it to be. And I know for myself, starting the company that I'm currently running right now, I thought the whole thing was going to be up and running in less than a year. That's not the case because we're 4 years in right now, and we pivoted, multiple times already. We're about to launch into this other thing, but then you have things like an e-commerce store where it can be up and running in 6 months. An e-commerce brand. It's like, but that's, and it goes back to also the common sense thing where, don't expect to just know what a good brand looks like. Don't expect how to build a good brand right off the gate. You're going to have to evolve it to be that look, that thing that you want it to be. And it's going to take how many iterations of it, how many different variants. You don't know because you have to go test it out.
Yeah.
You have to kind of crash, and crashing is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a matter of, are you going to get back up again? And, yeah, and that's why I love. That's why it's so fun to hear other people's stories and just talk about it, because that's something that is not talked about enough. It's the getting back up and getting knocked down. Same thing for any fighter, any wrestler. You mentioned that you need some form of martial arts. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. I used to do mixed martial arts. It was, I was the first of 3 boys, right? So I had 2 younger brothers.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I started off in martial arts and, didn't really like it. It was like Taekwondo. Didn't really like it. My parents would make me I did Shotokan, I did Jiu-Jitsu, I did pretty much every variation of it. And it was just, my parents' thing was you had to, and what I later realized was this was only my rule. I don't know why my other brothers didn't get this rule, which was you had to try it one time. If you didn't like it, you didn't have to do it after that. Right. And not try it one time, meaning like, you go play one game and you don't like it. Like they meant a season, a season. Right. And that's, I was like tennis, right? I did tennis, I did fencing, and like, I even won the fencing trophy for the little class thing tournament. And my mom was like, "You're so good at it." I was like, "I hate this." I was like, this is dumb. And she's like, "But you're good." I was like, "I don't care. I tried it. I do not want to do it. Don't make me come again." Right. And so it's like, then my brothers got into martial arts, because one of my instructors from the other studio opened up his own. I think that was my initial like real understanding of entrepreneurship, watching someone I knew work for someone else and now going to what they established. And when I started going to him, I was probably 8, 9. And then all of a sudden I went through things, was watching stuff from, and not really knowing what it meant, seeing him do different stuff and try different programs and stuff like that. But then I got my black belt at the age of 13. And then he offered me, which he didn't offer to everyone, because I was one of his first black belts also. It was like, he wanted me to be one of the coaches. And I was like, okay, like, cool.
Wow.
I didn't need the money or anything, because like my parents, were not well off, but there wasn't a financial need to like help the family or anything. But my parents said it would be fine if I wanted to do it. And so I did it. And that's when I started to learn a little bit about finances and all that kind of stuff, from a very base level. But that's where I got to see and be a part of the conversations of, different things they're going to try and promotions and so forth. And that's when I really grew to love like martial arts, because it built the self-confidence in myself, because I used to hate like fighting and sparring and stuff. And my dad even hired like, coaches, like one of our coaches there who was like a really good boxer and so forth. But then he would bring in his buddies that were in the military or in, like SWAT, and they would come in
Nice.
on off time and like teach me how to fight. And I still didn't like doing it until one time there was like a light bulb that switched, and it was like, it hurts either way, whether I want to fight or I don't want to fight. Might as well just, throw as many punches and kicks as I can too. And so like, we weren't traditional Taekwondo where it was just like, kicks here and there. Like, it was full blown fighting, takedowns, everything. And so all of a sudden it was for one of my belt testings that my coach was like, just go for it. Like, what's the worst you're going to do? You've already been knocked out. You've already been hit. It's like, what's the worst? It's going to happen again. I was like, oh, you're right. And then it was just like me and another kid that used to be kind of like, he was a little bit older, a couple years older. He was like kind of that bully a little bit. And then it was just like, I bit into the mouth guard, and I was like, let's just let it run. And then all of a sudden it was like two, 10 and 12-year-olds, going what it looked like, a heavyweight bout at a thing. Both of us are bleeding, we're both throwing punches, throwing each other. And then it was like, all of a sudden you realize that it's like, sometimes if you just give it your all, things work out better than you anticipate. But our fear, and this is like for life, like fear holds us back. But like, what is fear? Fear is the unknown. Fear is what is around the corner, right? And it's like, other people have already been down that path that are trying to give you advice, right? It's like, sometimes you think you know what's around the corner, but sometimes maybe you should listen to the advice and actually listen. Whether you take it or not is up to you. But if you listen to the advice and with an open mind, you might have an answer, and all of a sudden you might get to use a flashlight around that next corner.
Okay, wrapping up here, what does the future hold for you? I know that the franchise you just launched. I don't know, did you just launch your franchise?
Yeah, so we launched last year. We're opening up in Tampa, Florida right now. We're based out of California. And then this year we'll be opening up in Dallas, or a little outside of Dallas, Texas as well. And we have some other candidates. So, I mean, it is a newer franchise model, but with our model being different than any other place, it has picked up a decent attraction off the get-go. So this year's goal is essentially to sign on 10 new franchisees.
If someone was interested in kind of learning more about it, where would they go? Would they have to go apply, or what?
Yeah, so you can go to apply. You can go to strive11fitness.com/franchise, and it'll take you right to the franchise page. Or if you just go to strive11fitness.com, you can click on the franchise tab, and it'll tell you a little more in depth about the franchise model and stuff. But if you just, type your name and phone number and everything into there, I'll reach out to you, and we'll have a call and explain it in more in depth.
So we asked almost all our guests at the end of the show, what's your favorite podcast or books that you like to listen to?
You mean besides this one? I'll say my favorite podcasts, I mean, I have a couple, and it depends on what mood I'm in,
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, is that I'm not one of those people that listen to a podcast and listen to every single episode. Like, I'm a very visual person, right? And it's done me good and done me wrong. Like, if I see an energy drink has a cool label, I'll buy it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But podcasts, I'll listen to like Andy Frisella's, the, MFCEO project / The Real AF. One of the big ones that I listen to, and actually I know the owners of it, is The Real Business Owners. That one, honestly, I will say is probably my go-to podcast, just because it's given me such actionable insights, and it's purely interviews from other business owners at different levels of business, and hearing their struggles and them overcoming it, taking that story and like, how can I apply this to my current problem, right? And so it's like, that's the biggest one for me. And it's like, even with audiobooks and stuff, like, I don't listen to fiction. Fiction's fake, right? Yeah, so I don't listen to fiction. I only listen to biographies, autobiographies, or borderline textbooks, and stuff like, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, stuff like that, where it's like, I like learning, right? But it's so that I can take, even if it's just one piece of information from a podcast, from an audiobook, that's all that matters, right? You don't need the whole thing to be filled with gold. If you could take one piece of information away from it and it changes your life, it changes your situation, it changes your business, then what more can you ask for?
Zach, oh, that's perfect. Leads us right into the next So key takeaway. What's in your opinion the key takeaway that our listeners should take away from this episode?
Two things put together, which is that statement. And again, I don't know if this is my statement or if I heard this or read this somewhere, but common sense is only common to the person that knows it. And you need to realize that you don't need to look at the big picture and only have that view of the big picture. That does help in keeping a vision. But at the end of the day, if you're only looking at the destination, you're going to limit yourself because it seems overwhelming, right? Cross the bridge as it comes, right? And focus on the now, just like we talked about with our kids and all that. Focus on the now and realize that if you, like we talked about, if you believe in it or if you don't believe in it, that's what sets where your ability to achieve it is. You have to realize that success in any area of life, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when, right? So if you believe that it will happen, it will happen. Not guaranteed on the date, but it will. But that's what you need to believe.
Awesome. And then last one, how can people support you, find you, follow you, whatever you want to do?
So, I mean, all my social medias are pretty much the same. Devan, Devan, last name Gonzalez, Gonzalez. Or if you just go to my website, which is devangonzalez.com, everything from my book to, the gym, the franchise, all that kind of stuff is all on that. It's pretty much just my hub for everything that I'm doing.
Right. Well, Devan, thank you for joining us for this episode, and best of luck to everything. Hope to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Eric's podcast. Dive into conversations about life, family, and business with your host, Eric. Whether you're looking for practical advice, personal stories, or just a little inspiration, Eric's got you covered. Tune in every week to join the journey and get ready to elevate your game now.